Have you ever felt yourself in the presence of holiness? That space where you feel a deep sense of awe and wonder. Something enfolds you that gets in, seeps into your being and softens you, your inner conflicts and enmities and frustrations, seeps into your being with peace and a sense of calmness and joy. A wisdom that lifts you out of your normal view and perspective on life and into something more possible and positive and hopeful. Have you ever been in the presence of such holiness? It may be a person, it may be a person you've encountered face to face or on the screen, or whose words you've read that have come alive, or whose story you've read. For me, someone like St. Francis of Assisi, or one of the great mystics of the church. Maybe a modern one, Thomas Merton. People whose words and whose lives are filled with this deep sense of wholeness and holiness, and who draw me into another place through what they say and through their being. It may not be just a person and their words, it may be music. Orchestral music where the strings soar and the brass is strong and reverberating, as is the percussion, or the woodwind, deep and mellow or high and piercing. A melody that soars with harmonies and counter melodies and sounds blending and rubbing up against each other and producing tension and resolution, and lifting us into a new place, a place of wonder, where our minds are set free and our hearts are peaceful and calm, and we're carried into a different place. It may be the fluid movement of jazz and improvisation, or a pop song, or it may be a story, the story that touches us, filled with pathos and emotion and relationship and life. One we read or hear or see enacted on the stage or screen. A story that captures not just our imagination but our being and who we are, and invites us to see life differently. That resolves some of the tension in our being. It may be in nature, in the world around, in its beauty and wonder. Susan and I and our dog Nico just spent a week down the south coast. We got a cottage on the beach. And all day, each day, we could see the surf and the sea and the sky and the sand and the headland. The changing scenes, the colours of early morning and late afternoon, and then the brightness of the day. A blue sky, or one tinged with wispy clouds, or deep black clouds that closed in and threatened. There was wonder in the waves that beat up on the beach, as they have done for millennia, roaring through day and night. Walking the sand, the shifting and changing sands with the tide going in and going out. Of the rocks and the rock pools, and the dog or another dogs running and jumping in the waves, chasing balls or sticks or each other. It was renewing. There was something profound about it that lifted us into another place, that eased the tensions and the conflicts, that seeps into the soul. And in the presence of all these things, the presence of sacredness, of holiness, of beauty, of wonder, of love, we witness and perceive and experience the divine in our midst. In mystery and wonder and awe, we see, we perceive, we experience We try and grasp and hold, but we can't. We must just experience it, allow it to touch us, to flood our being, and offer us a new vision, a different way of being and living, of who we can be in this world and amongst these people. Such is the experience of people in Luke's story of Jesus. We read in this week's story in chapter 6, a crowd gathers on the plain, some disciples who have been called to follow Jesus, and the great crowds. And they listen to his words. But in listening, they are drawn into this presence of holiness, of sacredness. In him, in his life, his being, his words, they experience the divine, the Christ in their midst. And there's healing. There's healing of their being. The spirits that are in conflict, the grief, the pain, the guilt, all the illness, the dis-ease within them that conflicts body, mind and spirit and distorts and disrupts. The anger, the hatred, the bitterness, the frustration, the confusion, the struggle. It's all there, but in this presence there is peace. And the emotions soften as the wisdom and sacredness and holiness dissipates the tension and brings healing to these unclean spirits and these bodies filled with illness and pain. There is life and renewal and healing in the presence of God, in the presence of the divine, however it comes to us. And in the words of Jesus, he goes on, he speaks to the crowd and he says, "Blessed are the poor, for you will be filled. Blessed are those who mourn, for you will be comforted. Blessed are those who are persecuted for my sake, who live for justice and life and love, but are persecuted, and people speak evil about you and try to bring you down. The status quo that doesn't like change, that won't give in to what it has, who won't change and share and be generous." And he goes on, "Woe to those. Woe to you who are rich and are filled and have everything you want and more, because you've got all you have. Woe to you who are just happy and oblivious of the pain and the discomfort and the sadness and the grief of people in the world. Woe to you who curse other people, who shun them, who speak wisdom and life and love." These promises, blessed are the poor, seem hollow in a world where the poor are always with us and nothing seems to change. And the rich get richer. And as Midnight Oil says, the poor get the picture. Jesus' words are about a great reversal. The reversal of all things that the kingdom or reign of God is about. A turning up of the world, turning it upside down. So that those who are on the bottom are lifted up instead of constantly trodden down. Where those who live in grief and pain and torment are lifted out and given hope. Where those who speak truth and justice and live for what is right and good, for the well-being of all people, are joined and shared in that task. Where the world is a place where people are welcomed, an inclusive community of love and grace and wonder. Where there is enough for everyone and not too much for anyone. That's the world that Jesus imagines. That's the world that God imagines and Jesus proclaims. And it's a world that can be when you and I hear his words. When you and I are touched by that deep holiness and wonder. When you and I are transformed in our minds, in our hearts, in our being, in our soul, and see the genuine way of life that is proclaimed. When we become part of this transformative vision of God's reign amongst us, a community of love and justice and life, this world can change. Grief and pain can be touched with blessing. The poverty of impoverishment, not just financial, economic impoverishment, but the impoverishment of education and relationship and life and hope can come to people, along with food and water and clothing and shelter. Communities of life and belonging, where the diversity of people come together around a common table and share the same food equally. Where power is used for the goodness to lift people up and protect the vulnerable, not protect the wealthy and powerful and strong. This is the vision, and the vision becomes a reality when we perceive it and are grasped by it and own it and live it. And that's the invitation of Jesus. And those who grasp it, those who are drawn into this life, find life in all its fullness. Instead of competing for more and against one another, we share and we work together in collaboration. And life is richer, fuller for everyone. This is the great vision of Christ. This is the healing that comes to people, to communities, to families, to nations. This is the way. This is the way we're called into. It's for you and for I. Will you join in the journey with Jesus?
Bye.